Alright, let's get to it. So, for Mythic Raden, we're actually going to want 2 tanks, we're going to want 3 healers, 6 to 7 melee, and then the rest range DPS. For tanks, the primary responsibility is going to be positioning and ad pickup. Ad pickup has to be real crisp, or you're going to see people start getting picked off. So, when the first orbs come out, I'm going to pause, talk a little bit about the pre-pull positioning. So here we go. See that the tanks actually move the boss right over here to this corner so that this Nightmare Orb can hit it, but also all the ranged that are out here. Okay, so we can hit the boss and we can also pivot and hit the first Void Orb that's over here in this direction. So ranged, we're pre-spread out. We don't want to splash each other at all. And you know, we're all hitting the stuff. We actually optimized the amount of range that we had on that Void Orb. So like you see a Hunter here, he's not going to be touching it unless it gets really close. So we're putting more damage onto the boss because we're heroing at the start, and we need to hit the boss into phase 2 prior to the 4th set of ad spawns. So tanks are going to be moving from here, and then once the orb hits them, they're going to be moving over to X just to give that Void Orb a little bit more time to travel. And this is pretty important. We only have 2 Warlocks, so we weren't able to hit the orb reliably, but once we have the hero, that's where we start to balance out that DPS. So to get back into this video, get rocking.
All these orbs get a good spread.
Now once there's the Nightmare hit, nobody gets splashed on the damage, and we all pivot as needed to kill this Void Orb, right? Melee's already going to be handling the Nightmare mechanic, and then he just ate Vita, so now we're ready to work on this weak aura. So, to explain this weak aura, this is what's going to basically do the fight for you in a lot of places. So right here, you see the Vita assignments. I'm going to be star in the 4th spot. The first one, and this is very important, and we actually end up calling this on the 3rd set of orbs. First one has to go to star or to green, which green is kind of off in that direction. So see right here, first person with it, which is Akka, she's going to be going to star, and Callow, who's already here on X, he's going to be the first jump. And it's very important that in this middle area here, nobody fucking stands there because they're going to get zapped. So the way that this weak aura works, you set it up in Exorcist, and everybody in the raid has to have Exorcist installed even if they're not in the rotation. And then your raid leader is going to set this up prior, just follow the instructions, it's not that hard. But when your name is red, you have the debuff, okay, and that countdown shows the amount of time that's remaining on the debuff. So the melee has already done 2 orb jumps, right? So Still had it, then Squawk covered it, and Glory, Chibi, and Val are coming up. So they're going to be handing that off, and then we're going to be handing off the Vita. If one of these people, like let's say one of the ranged got the first Nightmare, they would have taken this gate, and they would have gone into melee, and then the weak aura actually corrects that and fills in everybody that needs to be. If they were one of the people in the rotation for Vita, it would have swapped in the backup for them. So this weak aura is very important, and one of the tips that I'd give you is if you are one of the people that's assigned in that rotation, every time one of these mechanics comes out, look at your weak aura, okay? Because you're not always guaranteed to be in the same spot, so that hopefully saves you some wipes. But we can keep going here and see how we hand these off. So you'll see the first Vita jump there, Nightmare's being handed off, and now the ads come out. So the most important thing about these ads is that they're quickly picked up and taken to the boss, and that you switch to the priority that your raid leader calls. Usually that's going to be Stalker or the Void Hunter first, and then you kind of just decide from there. So right there, picked it up. I added, real quick there, you heard a telephone call, right? So the telephone is actually my weak aura for getting the Vita on me, because what happens, weak aura gives you a sound if you're the next one in the rotation, but it doesn't do anything if you're the first person with that debuff. So you want to have people emphasize when they're the first person to get that debuff so they know to get to that star mark. So that I was just in the rotation here and I got it on the jump, but you want people to have something to let them know that they just got Vita. So now we're just killing Raden, moving up, and tanks are going to move Raden here to Diamond because we're getting ready for the next set of orbs. Orbs set out, I'm going to put a Wind Rush down because we have some DHs going on to get a magic debuff down onto the Beta Orb. We're swapping. Boss is moving. You see the first Nightmare off here to the right, and he's going to get that so that Callow can pick it up, and then we resume our ranged rotation. Melee's... Alright. So this is the second set of positioning. Ranged is going to be out here in the ring. We're going to be handing off that Nightmare. And then melee is, you know, pumped up onto the boss, and they're going to be bouncing the Void Orb into the wall. Just repeatedly into the wall, because when you bounce it into the wall, it doesn't obviously go outside of the encounter area, and it's really easy to soak. Want to make sure you don't hit that onto the tanks or anything like that. Range, you'll have to be aware of these Dread Infernos. Oh man, don't drag those onto other raid members. They're going to be pissed. Just kind of kite them around in a circle. Now, you'll see Cordius or Savron here. He's going to go over against the wall on Star, and then I'm going to pick it. I'm going to pick this up from him, I believe. Or actually, I'm after Akka here. So
on the Void Hunter.
Void Hunter spawns. You hear your squawk call on the Void Hunter, so we want to target swap. We don't want to fall behind on ads ever. And right here, I'm going to get Dread Inferno. I'm trying to, you know, deal with the mechanic. I have the last one, so I don't really need to worry about if I'm, you know, close to anybody. But I burned a defensive there to eat a couple stacks of the Void Tornado. You're going to spend a little bit of time here to burn Raden and cleave onto the Night Terror here. Night Terrors are a little bit less of a priority. And the reason... Okay, so we have tanks moving. This took us a little while to figure out, okay? So the tanks are moving from here to here. And the reason they're doing that is because they want this Void Orb that comes out of there to get eaten by the boss almost immediately. Okay, and that just worked out better for healer timings. That was something we adjusted like kind of late in our pulls, but it ended up being a lot less raid damage taken, just because of the debuff that Void Orb being eaten by the boss puts out. The melee basically just cleaves down this Night Terror, and then what's going to happen is the boss is going to move, like I said, right there, and then it's going to come over to the stairs. We won't see that because I'm going to turn around, and there's a Nightmare Orb that comes out from the boss spawn position that I'm going to pivot and hit here pretty soon. So that's the next kind of big movement. Dread Infernos are going to spawn during this, and there's just going to be some stuff that people need to be aware of and need to be ready for. Again, you don't really have to be spread as ranged because there's not going to be a Nightmare splash. And if you're doing the strat that we did with the 3 orbs, this is the last orbs that you have to deal with. That's rocking.
Void ASAP, and over to Nightmare. DPSing Nightmare Orb as it spawns.
So, getting Nightmare. Gonna avoid some tornadoes. We actually got pretty lucky on the kill here.
It was literally moving away. Oh my god.
So we want to put some pump into this Nightmare because it does go, and then the tanks are gonna actually drag away so that he doesn't need it. Now, another one. There's a lot going on right at this point. This is probably the hardest wall of the fight. Once you figure out your first set. So once you're at this wall, here's what's gonna happen. Okay. I believe that Bly actually called this, but this first Vita is going on green. Okay, and this almost has to be a raid lead call. Okay, it has to be one of your council. Somebody should always be aware of this, and it should always get called for that first person to go to green because it's a little disorienting when you're moving, and honestly, it'll probably save you a few wipes if you get there. Now, we also have our markers for Vita a little bit wider than the first initial ones, just to give us a little bit of safety because the melee are actually going to be handling their Void in this little corner that you see. They're bouncing it against, there's like a fire orb here, or against this stair wall. So Savron's going over here to green, so that's going to jump all the way over here to Moon on where Callow's at. And what you'll see here is that the weak aura marks, gives you the proper marks for this position. Okay, so it knows that it's the third set of orbs, but it does not mark the person. So Callow still has circle, and Savron still has star, which are the marks for the initial sides, over here. And you have to be aware. You have to say, okay, if I have star, I go to green. That's why we always say, okay, the first Vita goes to green, just to help people out with that. Meanwhile, boss is at 52% here, and we're going to be kind of trying to even out the push with the ads that spawn because both of the ads are dangerous as far as healing abilities go. But you're going to see the first jump here. I look at
possible.
the weak
Flush
aura.
tornado
I see
stairs.
again that I'm green, so I'm
Let's go
waiting for my
stalker
turn. I'm
first,
kind of
stalker
cheating over here
first.
to the left, so I don't waste a lot of uptime. Moving over. But one note I want to talk about real quick. The Void Hunters put out a soak orb, and you used to use immunities to cheese that a lot. You know, when this was first being prog, that is no longer necessary. You don't really need those. If you have an immunity, it's still nice to get it out to reduce the damage that the raid's taken. If you have an immunity, you can jump out and solo it. But if you're not, like if you're a warrior, you can just stay in and splash the melee. Don't splash the tanks with it, but the amount of melee that you should have on the boss, even with them handling the Void Orb, should be enough to handle the Void Hunter ability. Chain Lightning, you can't really do anything about. You just want to kill the Stalker and the Void Hunter first. So right here, burn a Stalker, then we end up burning Void Hunter, and you'll hear swap to Raden here.
I remember time for a second there.
Be on boss, cleaving the Void Terror. Be on boss.
So
Push the boss.
the reason we're pushing boss here is
Looking
because
good.
the orbs are
Stop
about
the
to
Void
spawn
Terror,
again in
kill the
2
Void Terror.
seconds, but now we just pushed into phase 2.
Good. We're going to middle, stacking up.
So another big movement to talk about here. We're going to be moving boss over here to kind of like past blue, and then the range is going to be kind of stacked up in this area behind blue, because the raid damage taken is about to ramp up significantly, and we want to give healers the ability to heal that effectively. So big boss move. What you're also going to start hearing is tank communication. This is critical. Like, this will wipe you more than anything else in phase 2. Is the King Strike in phase 2. The way it works is the amount of health that the tank has remaining. That's the strength of the dot that will be applied to them after it hits them. Right at the moment it hits them. So they want to be at low health when the King Strike hits them. It doesn't hit very hard. But what you want to do is you want to kind of stop healing, let them get hit while at like 30% health. Like 50% is dangerous. So like below 40, like 30 to 25 is actually really good. And then as soon as that hits, you have to start healing them again. Okay, we have a blood decay. Pam is actually on his blood decay, so he's kind of managing that himself a little bit. But you have to communicate it with the healers, and we had some wipes where we weren't communicating well enough, and the healers were like, well, yeah, we see the debuff kind of going out, so we try to cover it with a weak aura because it's based off boss energy, but there's a lot going on there at that point, and honestly, there's really not a lot else to call, so like that's the primary communication you should be having in phase 2, along with charge bonds, which I'll talk about in just a second. So
Middle.
get a little bit of uptime here, just to blast them.
Stacking up the middle, bombs coming up.
Don't heal.
So you hear that, don't heal, because he's about to get hit, and then he's going to manage himself. Okay. So charge bonds, we fuck this up all the time, even now on rekills. So I put a wind rush down just to help with the dodges. They do come out a little bit quick, and that's lethal damage. I don't actually get corrupted existence during this pull. Okay, here we go. So this one we actually did right. So DBM will mark the lead person with charge bonds with a star. You see that shit right there? Okay. That person with the star, you want to designate them to go either left or right. We say that they go left. So star should go left. Everybody else, you see all these little ding-dongs here, right? They all have a connection to this charge bond. They go right. Okay, so charge bond goes out. Look at your character, look at your nameplate, whatever. See if you have star. If you have star, just book it to the left. Everybody else books it to the right. And that's just like a set movement. And the big thing about that is when you're done with charge bonds, you want to collapse back to the middle. Okay? You're going to collapse back so that you keep that kind of elastic movement going on the whole time. We kind of suck at this, by the way. Not our best mechanic, but healers kind of carry us through. The other part of this phase is corrupted existence. I don't think I get it on this pull. But what you want to do is you want to have a macro that cancels the major heals, and then you want to get out of the group healing buffs when you get that so that you don't die. Because as soon as you top off with corrupted existence, you insta-die.
4, 3,
Dodging soon.
Right, not a lot going on in this phase. You see healers rotating cooldowns. We're scuffing charge bonds there a little bit. Poor Ish, the DK had to run it out. Oh, I did get it. Okay, so I have corrupted existence. I canceled all the heals right away. I'd recommend a
Response.
hotkey for that, by the way.
Guys,
And then I just hang out
lead
right here.
is left. Star marker,
Four,
left. Everyone
go.
else, right.
Again, we
Dodge.
scuffed
Next
out a
one,
little
bring
bit.
out.
But you see that, you know, if I'm outside that healing rain, they're doing a good job. They were tracking this debuff, and
Heal,
they're
heal,
not, they weren't healing me up to the top. So now,
Three,
Let's go.
you know,
two,
at this point,
one.
It's looking good, boys. It's looking good.
we're just pushing off to the phase 2 is not that bad.
Lead
Honestly,
left, lead
phase
left, lead
2
left.
is all about
Five,
Backpedal left,
four,
move left.
just dodging the big explosions,
Next
and then
bombs,
your
dodge,
healers
dodge,
and your
dodge,
tanks
kill the boss,
communicating
kill
and
the
not
boss.
fucking up charge spawns too fast. So there you go. That's Raden. So hopefully you can go out there and just execute, and hope this helps.